Welcome back, everyone.
Okay, let's go rock and roll.
We're learning Tractate Shabbos, Perek Shlishi, Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, 43a1. Esivei. They challenge the Rabbah on the basis of the following Mishnah: we may invert a bowl over a lamp in order that it not set fire to an overhead beam. You're allowed to put a bowl, cover up a lamp in order that it not set fire to an overhead beam. The beam is muktzah and is not common for a beam to be in danger of catching fire from a lamp. Yet the Mishnah permits moving a bowl for the sake of protecting the beam. So what's the question with this? It says in Rashi, the beam is intrinsically muktzah machmas gufay, since it is not a utensil but a building material. So you are protecting something that is muktzah. So the Gemara answers, Rabbah answers, the Mishnah is dealing with houses that have low ceilings, in which fire are commonplace due to the proximity of the lamps to the ceilings. We may support, when it comes to a beam that broke on the Shabbos, we may support it with a bench or with a sideboards of a bed. Now the breakage of a beam is not a common occurrence, yet the Mishnah permits moving a bench or bed to support the broken beam, even though it is muktzah. So the Rabbah responds, the Mishnah is dealing with new and untried beams, which often break when a roof is first laid on them. We may put a vessel under leaking rainwater on the Shabbos. Now, leaks are uncommon, and the leaking water is generally muktzah, since it is not suitable for use. Yet the Mishnah permits moving a vessel for the sake of catching the rainwater. So Rabbah replies, the Mishnah is dealing with new houses which commonly leak. I guess untried yet. So having concluded the discussion of Rabbah's interpretation of Rav Chisda's ruling, the Gemara cites another interpretation. The following is the reasoning of Rav Chisda, who forbade placing utensil under a hen to receive its egg, because by doing so one is nullifying the preparedness of the utensil, since it will be forbidden to move the utensil once the muktzah egg falls into it. If a barrel of tevel broke, one may bring another vessel and place it under the broken vessel in order to salvage its contents. So tevel is muktzah. Yet the Vaisa allows receiving a non-muktzah vessel, even though this will nullify the preparedness of the vessel. You wouldn't be able to touch the vessel. Now this vessel that you're using to cover up the muktzah is becoming muktzah. Table is considered prepared for Shabbos use. What does that mean? For if someone transgressed and perfected it by separating tumah on Shabbos, you're not supposed to, but if somebody did it, is now perfected. Since the table is considered prepared for use, receiving it in a vessel does not nullify the vessel's preparedness.
But you
have you have a table,
right?
You cover it with a vessel. Usually you cover muktzah with a vessel, that the vessel itself becomes muktzah.
True.
So he says with that it says it's different. What's the answer? The Gemara answers it's different when it comes to table. Why? Because table, what does it mean table? It's something that you didn't tithe.
Right.
So you're not allowed to tithe it on Shabbos.
Right.
But what happened if you did?
Right.
What happened if you did?
Then it's saying it's okay.
It's okay. So it's really not muktzah. It's not 100% muktzah because it can become good for use on Shabbos.
Right.
So it says that's what they say. The table is different. So you can't just say that you're allowed to cover and protect all muktzah.
Right.
If someone transgressed and perfected it by separating Tuma, it is perfected.
Right.
Now, we may place a vessel under a lamp to catch falling sparks. The sparks are muktzah. Yet the Mishnah permits catching them in a non-muktzah vessel, even though this nullifies the preparedness of the vessels, because you can't use the vessel now.
Right.
Amar Rav Huna Breder Rishon, it says mamash. He says sparks have no substance, and it is permissible to move the vessel even after the sparks fall in, meaning you did not create a situation where the vessel is no good.
Okay.
The idea is you can't take something on Shabbos and change its designation. Suddenly make it muktzah. You're turning it into a muktzah.
Yeah.
How do you turn it into a muktzah? By now, if you're putting this vessel to catch the sparks, so it's being used for something that is muktzah, so it turns to be muktzah. So he said with sparks it doesn't turn to be muktzah. That's the Gemara's answer, because they don't have mamash, they don't have any real substance, the sparks. If it was oil, it's a different story, but the sparks. Gemara challenge, we may support, when it comes to a beam that broke, we may support it with a bench or with a sideboards of a bed. Once the one wedges a bench under a sagging beam, it can no longer move it because it's now supporting the beam.
Right.
And its preparedness is thus nullified. Nevertheless, the Mishnah permits this. The Gemara answers the Rabbi Yosef responds, the Mishnah means that one may place the bench under the beam loosely, so that if he wishes, he may remove it.
I was thinking it was going to be a brace.
Its preparedness is not nullified when it is placed there.
Okay.
So it's not completely, I guess, carrying the burden.
Right.
So you can move it. Shabbos, one may put a vessel under leaking rainwater on the Shabbos. Now, the leaking water is generally muktzah. Why? Because they're not ready for use. Cannot be used on Shabbos. Yet the Mishnah permits receiving it in a non-muktzah vessel. Rabbi Yosef answered, but therefore we're dealing with leaking water that is suitable for drinking and is therefore not muktzah. One may invert a basket in front of young birds, so they may climb up and down from their nest. Now, since the birds are muktzah, allowing them to climb on the basket nullifies its preparedness, yet the Brisa permits this. So it says living creatures in 17, he writes, living creatures intrinsically muktzah, since they are not fit for consumption while alive. Since the birds are muktzah, the basket cannot be moved while the birds are on it. By inverting it on behalf of the birds, one is designating it for a muktzah function for the remainder of the day, nullifying its preparedness. How are we permitted to do so on the Shabbos? Right? So, Kasova Mutar Rav Yosef replies back in the Gemara, he says that Tana of this Brisa holds that it is permitted to move the basket after the birds climb off it. Inverting it on their behalf does not nullify its preparedness. Tanya also Talteloi, but it was taught in that self-same Brisa, it is forbidden to move the basket. But on all of them, you can move it while the birds are on the ladder, but once they're off it, you're allowed to. Even if the birds are no longer on the basket, even if the birds are no longer on the basket, it is prohibited. The Brisa refers to a case where the birds were on the basket throughout Ben Hashmoshes, at the onset of the Shabbos, in that case it is prohibited to move the basket even after the birds climb off. But since it was muktzah during Ben Hashmoshes, it is muktzah for the entire day. Having concluded the discussion of Rabbah and of Yosef, respective explanations of Rav Chisda's ruling, the Gemara proceeds to cite the opinion of an Omer who differs with Rav Chisda. Just as we may not place a vessel under a hen to receive her egg, so too we may not invert a vessel over a newly laid egg, so it should not break. The Gemara explains Rav Yitzchak's reasoning. He holds that a non-muktzah utensil may be moved only. A non-muktzah utensil may be moved only for the use of an item that may be moved on Shabbos. Meaning, it is forbidden, however, to move a non-muktzah item for the use of a muktzah item. Since the egg is muktzah, one, obviously because it was born on Shabbos, was laid on Shabbos, one may not move a vessel in order to protect it, even though the vessel is non-muktzah. Rav Yitzchak exposed all challenges that Abaye marshaled against Rabbah and Rav Yosef. They challenged Rav Yitzchak with all those challenges that were brought to bear against Rabbah and Rav Yosef. The numerous Mishnah and the Braises that permit moving a non-muktzah item for the use of a muktzah item. And he answered that all those teachings deal with cases where the person needed the place occupied by the non-muktzah item. For some other use, he needed the space where the object was occupying, and for some other use, and thus had to move it anyway. So you move it anyway, you put it on top of a muktzeh item. The Mishnah had Braisos teach that once he's handling the non-muktzeh item, he's permitted to deposit it wherever he pleases, even in a location where it will benefit a muktzah item. It is forbidden, however, to initially move a non-muktzah item for the sake of a muktzah item. If you already picked it up, you're allowed to put it where you want. For example, if you have a non-muktzah item, you're not allowed to organize your house on Shabbos, right? Start placing things in order. But if you need the space where the non-muktzah item is occupying, you're allowed to pick it up and put it already in where it's supposed to be. And so in this case, you're allowed to use it in a way that it will benefit you to cover a muktzah item. Both an egg that was laid on Shabbos and an egg that was laid on a Yom Tov, on a festival. We may not move it. Neither to cover the mouth of a utensil with it, nor to support the legs of a bed with it. How do you support the legs of a bed with an egg? It says 25.
Not with an egg.
An egg, when stood lengthwise, is structurally capable of supporting a heavier object.
I don't believe it.
There you go. However, since the egg that was laid on the Shabbos or Yom Tov is muktzah, it may not be used for any purpose. A famous said, I was taught this when I was a kid, that the egg, if you press it from the corner to corner, it would never break.
Yeah.
But if you do it on the side, it will easily break.
I know that part. Yeah. I say, look, we'll go out we'll get an egg and we'll do it outside to see what happens. So it doesn't, if it makes a mess, we don't.
Well, you have to do it exactly where the way they say. But anyway, this is how they support. You're right. An egg, when stood lengthwise, is structurally capable of supporting a heavier object.
I want to try it. I mean, do it someplace where I don't care if it's a mess.
Yeah. So the Gemara rejects the challenge and says, here too we may say that the Mishnah refers to a case where one needs the place occupied by the vessel. Tashma, come learn a refutation of the following by person. We may spread mats over stones on the Shabbos to protect from the elements. The Baisa permits moving the mats for the benefit of the stones, even though they are intrinsically muktzeh. The Gemara answers, the Baisa is dealing with pointed stones, the chazan of Esakis, which are suitable for use in the bathroom. It says 28, in Talmudic times, stones were used in lieu of toilet paper for the sake of human dignity. Sages granted a dispensation from the muktzah laws to allow one to handle stones that have sharp edge, which are suitable for this use. Tashma, we may spread mats over bricks on the Shabbos to protect them from the elements. The Baisa permits moving the mats for the benefit of the bricks, even though they are muktzeh. The Gemara rejects the challenge. The Gemara says the ishtaruye or the ishtur mebinyana. The Baisa is dealing with bricks that were left over from construction, which are suitable to recline upon. Tashma, person says, we may spread a mat over a beehive on the Shabbos, in the sun to protect the hive from the sun, and in the rain to protect it from the rain, provided the one does not intend to trap the bees. A beehive is muktzeh, yet the Baisa permits moving a mat to protect this muktzeh beehive. It is a case where there is honey in the hive. Since the honey is not muktzeh, the mat may be spread to protect it. Amar le Rav Ukva, Mimeshin Rav Ashi. Rav Ukva Mimeshin said to Rav Ashi, this answer is fine in the summer. I guess in the summer the ikadvash is honey in the summer. But in the days of in the winter, in rainy days, there's no honey. What is there? What can he say now? Why are you covering it? It's muktzah. Well, it says he said this is applicable only because of the 2 honeycombs that are left in the hive during the winter to sustain the bees. Since the honey is edible, a mat, I guess the honeycombs are edible, a mat may be moved to protect it. The Gemara says, but these 2 honeycombs themselves are muktzah. Since they are left in the hive for the bees, right, for the bees' use, why may the mat be moved to protect them? Was it a choshiv alai, where the person planned before the Shabbos to use the 2 honeycombs for human consumption? They are therefore not muktzah, and the mat may be moved to protect them. The Gemara questions this interpretation. Lo choshiv alai also, but if he didn't have in mind to use the honeycombs on Shabbos, is he allowed to protect them? Because they're muktzeh. And what says on condition that he doesn't mean to trap, provided that he does not intend to trap the bees. He should rather draw a distinction regarding the law of muktzeh itself and say, when is it said that one may cover the beehive when he planned to use the combs? Also, but if he did not plan to use them, it is prohibited. Why did the Baisa state instead an extraneous qualification to its first ruling? Hakamashman comes to teach us. Even if he planned to use the combs, even if he planned to use the combs, he may cover the hive only, provided he does not intend to trap the bees. So the Gemara asserted that the Baisa's leniency in allowing a beehive to be covered with a mat, even during the winter when there's no honey, refers to a case in which the owner planned to use the 2 honeycombs. The Gemara now questions whether this interpretation is compatible with other clauses of the Brisa. Mani, who is the author of this Brisa? Rabbi Shimon, if you say Rabbi Shimon, it is unnecessary for the owner to make this plan. Leis le muktzah, Rabbi Shimon does not accept a broad application of muktzah. Rabbi Yehuda, who accept a broad application of muktzah, if you say it's opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who accept a broad application of muktzah, kilem miskaven mayavi. What benefit is it if the person does not intend to trap the bees? Adovo shem miskaven also. Rabbi Yehuda holds that even something that is unintended is forbidden. Accordingly, it should be forbidden to cover the hive, even if one does not intend to trap the bees. The Gemara says, Lo'elo Rabbi Yehuda. Actually, the author of the Brisa is Rabbi Yehuda. What does it mean that he doesn't have the intention to trap the bees? It means that he must not make the mat that he's using to cover the bees like a trap by covering the entire hive. The lishbuk to allow them some room to escape, or some so that it should not be trapped unintentionally. Then it would be like psik reisha, that you cutting the head. It's not, the animal is not going to die. You're covering it. Obviously, you're going to trap the bees. You must leave some room for them to escape. Rav Ashi offers a different solution to Rav Ukva's original difficulty. Rav Ashi Omar, does the Brisa teach and make a distinction between the days of summer and the days of winter, when there is honey in the beehive or when there isn't honey in the beehive? The days of Nisan, the days of Tishrei, when it's transitional seasons, when you can have sunny days and rainy days. And there is honey in the hive. The beehive may therefore be covered, since the honey is certainly not muktzah. You're going to take the honey, it's food, it's not muktzah. In the winter, however, the Brisa should prohibit spreading a mat over the beehive, because then you have no use for it and it's muktzah. And of course, Rabbi Yitzchak ruling that one may not move a non-muktzah item for the sake of a muktzah one. So the mat is non-muktzah item. According to Rabbi Yitzchak, you're not allowed to use a non-muktzah item to cover a muktzah item on Shabbos. So the mat will be non-muktzah, the hive is muktzah, because there's no honey in the winter. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, you shouldn't do it. The Gemara supports Rabbi Yitzchak's opinion. Amar Rav Sheshes Puku, come and see. Ve'imru li Rabbi Yitzchak, go and tell Rabbi Yitzchak, Kvar Targum Ravuna L'Shmat Bavel. Ravuna was already elaborated your very teaching in Bavel. The Amar Rav Huna, Oisim Mechitza Lameis V'Shil Chai. We may erect an awning for the sake of protecting a corpse from the sun. Famous story with David HaMelech passed away on Shabbos, that his son asked the rabbis, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon asked the rabbis how to handle the body so it doesn't stain the sun. Or it doesn't stain the sun, doesn't stay also, it'll be protected from the vultures. So, we may erect an awning for the sake of protecting a corpse from the sun, if we erect it also on behalf of a living person. You can't do the mechitza just for the sake of the corpse. So, what is the meaning of this teaching? If a corpse is laying in the sun and is in danger of putrefying, of decomposing, two people come and sit next to the corpse on the hot ground on each side of the corpse, when they feel the feet hot on the bottom. So they bring a bed and sits upon it, both of them. Then they're hot on top. They bring a mat and spread it over their heads and cover the corpse that is in between them. This one then raises his bed upright to support one end of the mat and slips away. And the other one does the same thing, raises his bed upright to support the other end of the mat, slips away, he goes away, and the mechitza is done. And it's an indirect way, a loophole, to cover the corpse on Shabbos. The loophole that was given to Shlomo HaMelech was to place a bread on David HaMelech, and that's how they cleared the body. Anyway, the Gemara over here didn't mention it. The Gemara digresses to discuss permissible methods of removing a corpse from the sun on the Shabbos. One should roll the corpse over from bed to bed until it reaches the shade. This answer was given to Shlomo HaMelech. One should place a loaf of bread or an infant on the corpse and then move the corpse.
Nobody's going to put an infant on a corpse.
What?
Nobody's going to put an infant on the corpse.
Yeah. Where there is a loaf of bread or an infant available. All agree that it is permitted to move the corpse by first placing the bread or infant upon it. Where do they disagree? The lay. It is concerning a case where one does not have a loaf of bread or an infant available. One said that moving something indirectly is considered moving on Shabbos. Tiltul, which is an issue, especially when there's no Eruv. But other master Shmuel, Rav said it's not considered Tiltul, and indirect is not considered moving, and Shmuel said that moving indirectly is not deemed moving with respect to muktzah. So Rav is machmir. Rav says it's considered, indirect is considered moving, and Shmuel said it's not considered moving with respect to muktzah. It therefore allows ruling corpse from bed to bed. Shmuel would allow us to do it. We may say that this issue is a matter of tanoic dispute. We may not save a corpse from a fire. Rav ben Lakish says, I heard a tradition that we may save a corpse from a fire by moving it. When are you allowed to do it? Where there is the loaf of bread or an infant. Now, if there's no loaf of bread or an infant available, what is the reasoning of Rav ben Lakish? Rather, it is not presumable that we're dealing with a case of an indirect moving. They disagree concerning the issue of moving the corpse indirectly. The dispute is that one master, the Tana Kama, holds that moving indirectly is deemed moving with respect to muktzeh, and therefore forbids moving the corpse, even indirectly. Whereas the other master, Rav Yehuda ben Lakish, holds that moving indirectly is not deemed moving with respect to muktzeh, and he therefore permits moving the corpse indirectly. That's where the concept of shinui came from. Do things b'shinui. That's tiltul minat tzad. The same idea is doing something indirectly, and he therefore permits moving the corpse indirectly, like kicking the wallet that fell on that somebody was carrying before Shabbos. He noticed that he has a wallet on him, kicks it. By rolling it from one bed to another, as Shmuel prescribed above, it emerges that the issue of moving muktzeh indirectly, which Rav and Shmuel debated, was previously debated by the Tanoim of the Braisa. So this was already a machlekes Tanoim, was debated by Tanoim whether indirect moving is considered moving or not. The Gemara says, "Loi dechulan matiltum etzad shmei tiltu." Everyone agrees, the Gemara says, that moving indirectly something is still considered moving it, and with respect to muktzeh, and would normally be forbidden to move a corpse even indirectly. And the reason Abuda ben Lakish, who permits moving the corpse in order to save it from a fire, is because since a person is likely to be extremely distressed about the possibility of losing his relative's corpse to a fire. Moses says, and if you will not permit him to save the corpse from the fire, he may come to extinguish the fire in order to save it. So the rabbis therefore granted special dispensation for this case, allowing him to move the corpse. The Gemara records a final ruling concerning moving a corpse away from a fire. Aloha follows Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish regarding a corpse. It is permitted to move a corpse away from a fire on the basis of Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish reasoning that a dispensation was necessary for this case of extreme distress. It is permitted even to move a corpse directly when there is no other way to save it from a fire. The Gemara turns its attention to the final segment of our Mishnah, which states, we may not benefit from the oil since it was not prepared for Shabbos use. So the Mishnah was discussing a case where you're trying to save the oil. If you have a lamp with oil and it drips oil, so you're putting a kli and a vessel under it to contain the oil that is dripping. So you're not allowed to use this oil on Shabbos. We may not benefit from the oil since it was prepared for Shabbos use. The Mishnah does not state whether this prohibition attaches to the oil only while the flame is burning or even after it goes out. So the Gemara cites a brayso which addresses this point. Tanu Rabban Moisa Hashemen Shebaner Shebekaora also b'Shimon Matir. The leftover oil in a lamp or in a bowl is prohibited even after the flame goes out. Rabbi Shimon Matir, Rabbi Shimon permits it. So that goes into a whole different machlokes of whether, since it was muktzah during Ben Hashmoshes, during twilight, it remains muktzah for the entire day. So whether it is or not, that's another principle in the laws of Shabbos that is being debated. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon disagree regarding the scope of muktzah. One of the areas of disagreement concerns the principle of migud is katzai. It was muktzah during twilight, it remains muktzah the whole day. This principle is accepted by Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that if an item was muktzah for the duration of Ben Hashmoshes, the answers of Shabbos, it can no longer be considered prepared for Shabbos use, and therefore remains muktzah for the entire Shabbos, even if the underlying reason for it being muktzah no longer exists. It's no longer being used as a candle. On the other hand, Rabbi Shimon does not accept that an item designated as muktzah during Ben Hashmoshes automatically retains the designation for the entire day. Rather, he holds that it was anticipated that the item would become available for use during the Shabbos. Its muktzah status is lifted and becomes available. So that's really the basis of the machlokes. In the case at hand, Rabbi Yehuda holds that since the oil was muktzah at the onset of Shabbos due to the fact that the lamp was burning, it remains muktzah throughout the Shabbos, even after the flame has gone out. Rabbi Yehuda's view is reflected in the statement. Rabbi Yehuda's view is reflected in the statement of the Tanakama of the Baita, Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon, however, holds that the oil is muktzah only as long as the flame burns. Once it is extinguished, the leftover oil, both that which remains in the lamp and that which has dripped into the bowl, below becomes permitted. Welcome to you. We'll have a short class on Tractate Sota coming up.